Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting up the Neurotyrant and the Screamer Killer. Now I've assembled them all up to the point where it gets in the way of, of painting. So the Neurotyrant is essentially fully assembled and his two drones are beside him. The Screamer Killer is fully assembled except his arms are separate. And these are all the paints and colors I used throughout the entire project. Alright, I primed them all with a car primer. This is a black matte car primer because you can use it in any kind of weather, atmosphere kind of stuff, so that's pretty good. And then I based them all, started off with Pallid Witch Flesh as the base color. Now, thinking about it, if I was going to start a Tyranid army, I could go to Games Workshop and buy one of their, I think they have Pallid Witch Flesh or one of these colors as a primer. If you were doing an army, it'd be a good idea to start off with that all over. Alright, with cadmium lemon hue or something, cadmium orange, basically I mix these two colors together and create a wash and apply it all over to add a bit of flavor to the skin. But I probably didn't dilute it enough with enough mineral spirits, so it was a little strong, and then I wiped it after the fact. Alright, with Emperor's Children, a water down with Lamian medium, and maybe just a little bit of water, I apply it on like the ends of the drone's little tentacles, I don't know what these things are, but they're all over the arms and stuff of the Screamer Killer, stuff like that, just to add a pink tint into everything. Now with Acadian Flesh Town, watered down with Lamian medium to make a wash, we're going to apply this onto the joints of the Screamer Killer, I think the mouth of the Neurotyrant, and this neck part thingy of the Screamer Killer, just to add some character flavor. Alright, with Nagaroth Knight, Xerxes Purple, and Gene Sealer Purple, we're going to paint the Chitin, or Armor. Now, I want to do a darker setup than the previous Tyranids. So, Nagaroth Knight base, Xerxes Purple highlight, covering like 80 to 90% of everything. And then I completely forgot to record it somehow, Gene Sealer Purple, but I just basically did overbrushing, dry brushing all over on the edges, mostly to create the coloring. And, yeah, so I skipped that step. Sorry you couldn't see it. Now with magenta and a little bit of lamp black, we're going to create a wash of this, but it's going to be much thicker. It's not going to be a thin wash. It's not a paste, but it's still a wash. And we're going to apply this all over the armor plates. And then once it dries a little, we're then going to wipe off the excess. Alright, just a quick thing. With Emperor's Children, we're going to fill in these little, I don't know what these are, these spine thingies, but basically I knew I wouldn't be able to paint them earlier because they would get completely flooded in, so painting them now. Alright, with magenta and lamp black again, we're going to make another oil wash, but this time it's going to be much thinner, and this thin wash is going to go pretty much on everything. Yeah, pretty much everything. And then I wipe it almost immediately before it dries. I don't know, it really depends if you do it while it's still wet, or while it's just dried, or dried with a hair dryer or stuff. There's different results for each, so... Alright, with Gene Stealer Purple and Emperor's Children, we're going to do some highlights. So basically what's going to happen is, we'll take the Gene Stealer Purple, and basically I'm going to paint a thin line along the edges of all the plates, and then a bunch of straight lines all the way through. Paint, yeah, that's pretty much it. Then with the Emperor's Children, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of it and mix it with Gene Stealer Purple and apply it on, like, the tips of basically where I think a light point would be. There's just a handful of this. We don't use that much of the Emperor's Children. It's just some random places where I think light would be, or some more extension. Yeah. Alright, with Emperor's Children, Nagaroth Knight, we're going to make washes of each of them with Lamian Medium. So basically, this is just to add some color. So very thin down Emperor's Children with Lamian Medium. I'm going to apply it on the Screamer Killer's arms, and in a bunch of places to add a pinkish hue to some of the skin and areas. Then with Nagaroth Knight, I'm going to apply it to add some dark here and there around some armor, chitin, and stuff like that to just add some flavor. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Alright, we're back to this mix again, magenta and some black. And essentially, this time I'm making it as a paste, and I'm applying it onto the Screamer Killer's arms, and then wiping a bit of it off to add some transitional color. This is a big back and forth. I just want to try to replicate what they did on the cover, the box art, but it's meh. And then I apply a fine, very thin version of this wash on the rest of the arms to help blend things together. Alright, with Nurgling Green and Krieg Kaki, we're going to apply this onto the brains of the drones and the Neurotyrant. So basically, all over the brain stuff, Nurgling Green. Then I'm going to apply a couple thin layers of Krieg Kaki on like giant spots where it'd be open, where there'd be stuff around. Yeah, just to add like a bright spot. Now, with a wash of French Ultramarine mixed with some mineral spirits, I apply as many coats as I need to get the color right, because it really depends on how far you dilute it, and such, and in some areas, for some reason, the brains didn't really adhere to it, so I had to hold it upside down or stuff while I dried, and just apply more coats, wipe off any excess, and such and such. Alright, with Corvus Black, Thunderhawk Blue, and Fenrisian Grey, we're going to paint these claws or nails. So basically, Corvus Black all over, the Neurotyrant has a bunch of these giant fingernails, and the Psychophage has these giant weapon claws. Then we're going to highlight all the edges of the plates and stuff with Thunderhawk Blue and the edges of all his claws. Then with Fenrisian Grey, we're going to do a fine highlighting of all the edges and feathering on the Chitin and the edges and tips of his giant claws, as well as his feet as well. Yeah. Alright, so with Coella Green shade, which is a bluish green, I'm going to apply this pure all over the claws we just painted to sort of tie the colors together and harmonize it. Alright, with Emperor's Children, Gilman Flesh, Pallid Witch Flesh, and Pro Acryl White, which is a good white paint. So basically, I'm going to paint the mouth. So with the Screamer Killer, his tongue, I'm going to paint it Emperor's Children. Then with some watered down Gilman Flesh, once it dries, I'm going to apply this into his mouth and onto the mouth of the Neurotyrant. Once that dries, I'm going to take the Emperor's Children again and highlight his tongue. Then once that's done, yeah, the Gilman Flesh is going to highlight the edges of the teeth. And then with Pallid Witch Flesh, I'm going to paint the teeth in their entirety. And then once that's done with Pro Acrylic White, I'm going to paint the teeth again as the center as best of each tooth as best as I can. And that is the mouths. Now with Pallid Witch Flesh and Lamian Medium, I fix up the white of their skin. So the first try I do with Pallid Witch Flesh is pure, and I just overbrush it onto the skin, which creates a little bit too strong of a contrast. So then I mix it with Lamian Medium to make it flow better, and then I applied it all over the highlights of the skin. I basically repainted all the white skin, just the highlights, the upper areas and stuff, and the Lamian Medium helped the Pallid Witch Flesh create a smooth color transition. And yeah, it looks pretty good. And with Everland Sunset, I'm going to quickly paint the Screamer Killer's eyes. Alright, finishing touches, I'm going to take some Doomable Brown and make a wash with Lamian Medium. I'm going to use it, and I'm going to fill the entire inside of the Neurotyrant's inner armor thingy. I then assemble the Screamer Killer's arms onto his body after pre-trying it, making sure it'll fit in well. And with AK Interactive, I apply this all over the models. Here's a base that took me a couple days to make because of drying times, which I then immediately assembled the models onto. And done. Well, I may have skipped some steps here and there, but it's like I'm not focusing on the bases. I know the Neurotyrant all of a sudden has a very distinct base, and the Screamer Killer basically has very little, but basically muddy ground and stuff. Honestly, this video would have come out on like 2 or 3 days ago, but these bases take forever to make because of the different layers and drying times and stuff, so I'm going to buy a solution that'll help fix that and make it faster. Alright, now, as for the models themselves, overall, 8 out of 10 on each of them. They're average. I'm really getting bored of painting Tyranids because it's literally the same thing. The only difference was how weird the shapes were, and the Screamer Killer had weird arms. But apart from that, it's a very simple paint job. It's just like all the different details and stuff. The brain on the Neurotyrant is the most unique thing, which was pretty simple to do. One thing to point out is I forgot to mention earlier is that I used, so their armor has a nice sheen and shine to it. That's because I used the Army Painter Anti-Shine Varnish, which for some reason has a really nice shine, and I applied all over. I don't know, what is it, antimatter or something? Whatever. And so their skin looks dead and lifeless, but their armored parts look shiny. So that's pretty nice. The bases are fine, they're not that bad, but the emptiness of the Screamer Killer is a bit noticeable. Yeah, overall, they're a simple project. They were done basically on Sunday, but it took forever to finish off the bases since I kind of do them at the end, and that took a while. Alright, so the armor looks fine. There was just a bunch of small details I did here and there to pick things up, but like they weren't really worth mentioning. Overall, it's the same color scheme. There's nothing unique. Like the Space Marines have a lot of individuality and interesting stuff. These guys, not so much. So I'm probably going to call it quits on the Leviathan box soon because it's just getting boring. And the Space Marines are a bit meh. But I am going to do like 3 kits, I think. There's the Dreadnought, the Captain, and those Lictors. The Lictors I have a different plan for specifically for. So anyway, moving on. So like the video if you like the video, comment if you want to comment, share if you want to share it, and more to come.